there's a reason you're having that thought. And like give yourself that grace too, that you're not just mean to yourself or having these negative thoughts for no reason. So instead we can get curious and go like, where did that thought come from? Why am I thinking that? So really trying to zoom out and like make sense of the thought. Because if you don't stop it in its tracks and say like, where the heck did you come from? It's just gonna run all over you. Welcome back to Not Another Mindset Show. Today, we're talking about me. We're talking about myself and some of the things I made the title of this episode, the things I say to myself in the mirror. The reality is I really have said a lot of these things to myself, looking at myself in the mirror. That is not a requirement of these questions, but more so, these are questions that I ask myself. And often I am asked when I'm like a guest on other podcasts or just in conversation with people, and they say, well, you as a mindset expert, as someone who spends so much time in the behavior change and mindset and psychology space, how do you apply that stuff to yourself? And I've talked about this on the podcast before and just like things that I do as a mindset researcher and whatnot. But I wanted to make kind of just a quickie episode of specific questions that really do come up for me a lot when I am working through challenging things or I'm having negative thoughts come up. Because listen, just because I live and breathe mindset and psychology does not mean that I don't sometimes struggle and sometimes run into my own fixed mindset beliefs or self-limiting barriers, so to speak. So I wrote down some questions that I know come up in my own head a lot. And I think what makes them really useful is that I actually am asking myself these questions. It's not just like oh yeah, I have to think about that negative thought I had this morning at some point, maybe journal about it, and maybe you do, maybe you don't. It's really automatic for me. And so I think that that's an important disclaimer, not really a disclaimer, but an important conversation to have around all of this stuff is that it works because I'm doing it in the moment. And it works because my brain has quite literally been wired this way. And it is in large part due to the fact that I spend so much time in this space and talking about this stuff. But that doesn't mean that you have to be me. You have to have a PhD in psychology and have all of this like research that you've done in mindset and behavior change and help people with that stuff all of the time in order to do this. It does, however, require more conscious like thought and critical thinking in the moment when you're kind of going through it. And that's not easy and is not something that you should be just automatically capable of doing because we're really good at just spiraling. So when these negative thoughts come up or you're struggling with something, it spirals and turns into all of these other thoughts and things and all of the reasons why you're never going to be successful and all this stuff. You kind of have to be like, no, we're not going there. Let's think about this more critically. Let's zoom out and think about why these thoughts are coming up and why this is happening and what caused this. Kind of bring yourself back down to earth, to reality, to examine that thought. And that takes time and practice. So if for you right now, you're going to listen to me walk through all these questions and you're like, yeah, those sound like great questions that I should be using in my life, but like, how do I do it? I'm not going to do that. You know, you're already probably going to start thinking like, great, I'm glad that works for you, but who says it's going to work for me? And I promise you it will. These are not questions and things that I ponder about myself that only works for me. It will work for you. You do have to be intentional about doing it. And over time, you can get to a place where I am, where when I have these challenging thoughts, negative experiences, that the first thing your brain does is go into these questions. So, all that said, the first question I have here is, where did that thought come from? This is a literal in the mirror question I have had with myself before. So I'll be brushing my teeth, doing my makeup, getting ready for the day, doing things where like you're not on your phone, you're not working, you're not talking to someone else. And that is where those thoughts start to creep in, right? So when you have a thought and you're like, who am I to do that? Or what's wrong with me? Or something maybe even more negative and demeaning, like, you're never going to be good enough. You're ugly. You're whatever. It's hard for me to even say these phrases out loud because they're just so unproductive and usually, if not all the time, not true. So thoughts will pop up and I'll look at myself in the mirror, or I'll be driving, or again, it usually comes up when you're like doing something else. And when I have those thoughts that come up, I ask myself, where did that come from? Like, how did that just appear out of what seems like nowhere? Because it really typically isn't nowhere. There's a reason you're having that thought. And like, give yourself that grace too, that you're not just mean to yourself or having these negative thoughts for no reason. So instead we can get curious and go like, where did that thought come from? Why am I thinking that? Was there a situation that happened? Did someone say something? Is it like a perfect storm of events in my life right now that is making me feel that way and think this way? So really trying to zoom out and like make sense of the thought. Because if you don't stop it in its tracks and say like, where the heck did you come from? It's just going to run all over you. Next question. What am I making this situation mean? There's been honestly a variety of very interesting events in my life recently. Some that I know I share a lot on the podcast, but things that I like truly can't share for the privacy of other people and all of that. But just like interesting events, like things that have made me feel weird and uncomfortable. And anyway, I will leave it at that. Things that like, hello, welcome to the human experience. This is always going to happen. And see, my brain is doing it literally in real time where I'm saying that I feel weird and uncomfortable in these situations. And my brain immediately goes to, but welcome to the human experience, Kasey. This stuff is going to happen. So kind of normalizing the experience for myself already. You guys literally just watched me do mindset work on myself in the moment. So what am I making the situation mean? So if I have like some more significant feelings come up or thoughts that are attached to a certain situation, again, these like uncomfortable, weird, whatever, my thought is, what am I making this mean? Because if it was just the situation, which it is, by the way, and then you decide how it makes you feel, what you're making it mean, you have the power to decide. And we are doing this all day long, all of the time. We are meaning-making machines, for better or for worse. So in those moments where you're feeling icky, you're feeling weird, you're feeling uncomfortable, you're having some like self-doubt come up maybe, what am I making the situation mean? What are you making the situation mean? Because you are assigning the meaning. So in my case, I am making the situation mean that it is uncomfortable, that it is weird, that it is like not fair to me, that is like I'm not being considered or whatever, right? Like I'm just like coming up with random examples here. So, and I'm making it mean that because why? Again, and that kind of ties into the first question of like, where did this thought come from? So why am I making it mean that when it could theoretically mean all of these other things? And that's like another part of the conversation too, is if I'm making it mean this, what else could it mean? Since I'm making it mean that, what are the other paths of meaning making that could be taken here? What are the other ways that this could unfold? And what could that mean if it unfolded that way? And what could it mean if it unfolded the other way? And just like running through that, again, it kind of grounds you and helps you see it for what it is and see it for how you are deciding that it is. Okay, next question. Is it the situation or is it you? Or in this case, if I'm talking to myself in the mirror, is this the situation that's making you feel this way? Or is it you that's making you feel this way? So again, kind of like ties into the other questions that I've already said here. But with this one, we're really trying to extrapolate. Would this situation make anyone feel this way? Or is it me and my past experiences and maybe some of my own scars that I have or ways that I've felt in the past from other people that are now making me feel this way in this certain situation? Or is this situation just in and of itself going to make anyone feel this way? And in either case, it can be helpful to like see it for what it is. So much of this is just like, what is the actual reality of this situation? What is going on here? So I will spend some time thinking, like, especially if you feel like you want to react to something, this can be really helpful, where you can decide, is the reaction coming from something else about me and I've been here on this planet for 32 years of experiences. Is there something that I've experienced in the past that is now causing me to react this way now? And one thing I will say too, I'm using the word react. A lot of my reactions are internal. I don't externally react until I have sifted through the internal reaction. And people are different in this regard, external processors versus internal processors. And I do think so many people just don't have access to that internal processing because we're so used to like, I feel this way and I need to put it out into the external world and talk to people and tell them about it and make my feelings known and make sure that I am heard, which makes a lot of sense. But can you imagine what the world would be like if more people felt some sort of way, were feeling like they wanted to react to something in some kind of way, were experiencing something in the moment, and instead of immediately trying to get it out of them, they sat with it for a second and thought, where did this come from? What am I making this mean? Is this a me thing or is it a situation thing? Like, can you imagine what the world would be like? Okay, next question. I ask myself in the mirror, how accurate is this thought and what is the reality? So these, as you can tell, all kind of build off each other, but they'll work in different situations and circumstances. And some of these questions are going to land for you and you're going to like want to go write them down, which I do encourage that you do, by the way. Don't just listen to this podcast and then expect these questions to come up for you when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, which they might. I don't know. Maybe it's like going to stick with you. But how accurate is this thought? What is the reality? And this is where we can actually bring in a little bit of cognitive behavioral therapy and use it on ourselves in the way that we ask ourselves, okay, what evidence do I have for this thought? What evidence do I have against this thought? Now, based on the evidence for and the evidence against, what is the most accurate depiction of this thought? Again, kind of just bringing you back down to planet Earth and thinking like, what evidence do I have to support this even? And there probably is some evidence, otherwise you wouldn't be thinking of it in the first place. So this isn't an exercise or questions for the sake of proving your thoughts wrong. It's making you realize why you're having those thoughts, but also what makes those thoughts not true, so that you can, again, come to a more clear depiction of what is real. And that immediately will likely make you feel better too. Okay, next question. What's the worst case scenario? Love this one. Because we really love to jump to conclusions. That if this program launch doesn't go well, if I end up single for the rest of my life, we love to jump to like, what's the worst possible case here? We're thinking of these things from a really negative light and just seeing the outcome as being a bad thing, right? So when I say, what's the worst case scenario, I'm asking you to like really, really figure out what that is. So program launch, let's say it fails to whatever degree, whatever metric we're using to call failure. That's the worst case scenario. Okay. But did you die? Like that goes into my head. But okay, so, and this kind of loops back into some of those other questions. What are you making that mean then? Because if that's the worst case scenario, that it fails, then now you have more information to do it differently next time. And maybe that means the messaging needs to change, or your offer needs to change, or you didn't have the right launch strategy. So worst case scenario is you either do it again a different way or you do something different. That's actually the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is coming up in your head. The fake one is, if this program launch fails, what does that mean about me? That means that I'm not capable. I can't do this. I'm not cut out for this. That's not true. So what's the real worst case scenario? Or, talking about being single for the rest of my life. What's the worst case scenario if I actually don't find someone who is a great match for me? Worst case scenario, my life is fucking awesome. And to be honest, every year that I get older, it just keeps getting better, whether or not I have a romantic partner to share it with. So, worst case scenario, yeah, maybe I do end up single forever. Will that actually be the worst thing that ever happens to me? But here's the thing, the likely case, and I'm doing the thing again where I am mindset coaching myself as I'm saying these things, because I don't actually believe that that's true. I don't believe that I will end up single forever. Maybe I'll find my person when I'm 40. I'm currently 32. If that's the worst case scenario, like, cool, I get to be single for another 8 years and live my life on my own terms. No kids, no commitments. You want to go to Mexico next week? Sure, I'm there. Like, okay. Doesn't sound very worst case scenario like. So, but again, me mindset coaching myself in the moment is like, I don't actually believe that I will be alone forever. Here's doing it again. I'm not actually ever alone. I am constantly, always surrounded by amazing people that love me and support me. So I can't even give you a worst case scenario. So that's like an interesting perspective for maybe you guys to take, and maybe someone needed to hear this, and this is why I'm processing all of this like on the podcast live here, is that a lot of times we jump to a scenario that maybe we don't even believe in the first place. So if I want to jump to the worst case scenario of like, I'm single forever, but like, I don't actually believe that. So why would I even allow myself to go there? It's not productive to stay there. Instead, it's productive to think about how great my life is now and the evidence that supports how great my life has continued to get over time, and that that's only going to continue to happen. And if my life keeps getting better and then I find someone who wants to make it even better, like, good luck, man. Good luck. But would love to share that with someone. But right now, I'm great. This turned into an entirely different conversation than I wanted it to go. Okay, so the other thing too with the worst case scenario conversation with yourself is that a lot of times the worst case scenario is just getting back to where you were at the beginning. So let's say you start the business, or you enter into a relationship and you're scared that you're opening up your heart and they're going to crush it. You start the business and it fails and it's really hard and it doesn't take off the way that you wanted it to. Worst case scenario, you go back to being the person you were before you started the business. You go back to being the person that you were before you entered into that relationship, and you continue on. Worst case scenario is literally where you are right now before you make the decision to start the business, before you make the decision to enter into that relationship. You're literally just going back to where you already were. So in fact, my friend, you are living your worst case scenario right now in a lot of cases. Okay, next question. Am I not cut out for this? Should I quit? Or is this just a challenge? It may seem like I got all my shit together and I'm super confident and I know exactly the direction and where I'm going and all of the things, but things like this do still come up for me. Where should I even be still having this offer in my business? Am I even cut out for this? Do people even want this? That does come up for me still. So then I have to ask myself, well, do you want to quit? Do you not want to do that thing anymore? Or is it just feeling challenging right now? And that's okay. And it can just literally be that. This is just a challenge. But it's also, this is an important question, because I think a lot of times in our lives, we are doing things that maybe don't feel aligned, or we're uncertain about, or don't feel good to us anymore when they used to in the past. So this is an important question, because the answer might be, actually, I should quote unquote quit, but not for the reasons because I don't feel cut out for it, but maybe I've just like outgrown this thing, or it doesn't align with me anymore. That actually like rings very true for, and I've discussed this before on the podcast, but with the decision to no longer have a one-on-one health and fitness coaching offer in my business, I've pretty much entirely sunsetted a whole ass other company, which was KJO Coaching. So I no longer have a coaching staff. I no longer have the ability to offer you one-on-one health and fitness coaching through my business. And there was a lot of this conversation in my head of, am I just not good at this anymore? Because things did get challenging. However, the reason they got challenging is because I was pulled in so many different directions. So it got to the point where it's like, okay, well, maybe I should quit. I mean, I did quit. I quit. I did. But it wasn't coming from a place of like, I'm not good at this anymore. I'm not cut out for having a health and fitness coaching business. It was, no, my priorities have shifted and I feel more aligned and more focused when I'm on the health mindset coaching certification side of things. I'm mentoring coaches compared to the one-on-one coaching offer and running the coaching business. So yeah, should you quit? Are you not cut out for it? Are you not aligned with it anymore? Or is it just challenging right now? And that is part of the game. Okay. In general, a lot of this, and actually what I was just talking about too, brings me to the conversation around like, what is intuition? And like, oh, this isn't for me, versus what is like a fear, or call it like little t, trauma response. Because if you're not clear on that and you're thinking this is an intuitive no, but the reality is you're actually just still learning, you're still getting good at this thing, and you're being presented with challenges and difficulties right now, and it actually has nothing to do with your abilities and your success in that area, and that it's actually not your intuition saying no, you're just not that good at it yet. So, gosh, that's such a hard question. Is it an intuitive sense telling you you shouldn't do this thing, or you should give up on this thing, you should go another direction, you should pivot, you should whatever, you should end the relationship, whatever? Or is that just fear of failure coming up that's telling you, no, let's not do this anymore because there's a chance you could fail, and that's going to be embarrassing, and that's going to feel shitty, and what are you going to make that mean about yourself if that happens? It's a lot easier to just not do it than to try and potentially fail. But obviously, in order to be successful, you also have to try. So if you decide not to try, sure, you avoid failure, but you also definitely avoid success. So I don't really have an answer. I don't have an answer to any of these questions for you, but just something to continue to think about. I did make an episode at the very beginning of the podcast. Episode 5 is about that teasing apart of intuition versus like a fear or trauma response. So if this is like hitting you right now and you want more of this conversation, you want to dive into it deeper, I will link that episode in the show notes for you to check out. I'm going to run through the questions one more time. Just quick fire. Where did that thought come from? What are you making the situation mean? Is it the situation or is it you? How accurate is this thought? What is the reality? What is the worst case scenario? And is it where you are right now, where you could come back to? Are you not cut out for this? Should you quit? Or is this just a challenge? Those are questions I am often asking myself, staring at myself in the mirror and going, girl, where did this thought come from? But it is truly the case. And the mindset work never stops, my friends. So if you're looking for an endpoint, you're not going to find one. But I really hope that this episode was helpful. If you choose to use some of these questions or throw them on a sticky note on your mirror, so the next time that you're thinking these things, you ask yourself that, like, please let me know. In general, anything from the podcast, it literally gives me life to hear that the podcast is helpful for you. That is the reason I am sitting in this chair doing it, is to create things that are helpful for you. So if you have any feedback for me, if you want to share anything with me, like, please don't hold back. Please don't hold back. If you listen to a podcast episode and you're like, damn, that was good, that really made me think differently. Like, I want to know. If you wouldn't mind taking a second to reach out to me on Instagram or wherever and let me know, because that really fuels me to want to continue to do this. And if you really love me, then you'll leave a 5-star review. And here's the thing. I'm not just asking for the 5-star review. I'm not asking for you to rate the show and leave your amazing comments about me, but I'm also giving back. Every single month, we choose a random winner who has left a review to get one of my DIY products for free. And we're doing this every single month. And it is hard to get people to write reviews, okay? So there's not a ton of them in there, which means your chances are really high. So one thing though, when you write that review, we can't see who you are and know how to contact you to get that free product. So in order to do that, you do need to screenshot your review and submit it to our review form, which is linked in every single episode of the podcast. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, I would appreciate it so much. But either way, I would just love to hear from you in general. So, all right, my friends, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for being here and for listening. It seriously means the world. And I'll see you next time.